For decades, Tokyo had something unusual. It was one of the largest cities in the world and still relatively affordable. Compared with cities like New York, London, or Hong Kong, renting in Tokyo often felt manageable. But something has changed. In just the last few years, housing costs in Tokyo have surged. Property prices in the 23 wards have climbed dramatically, rents are rising, and more people are being pushed out of the city centre. To understand why this is happening, you have to go back more than 30 years. In the early 1990s, Japan's famous asset bubble collapsed. Real estate prices crashed, and the country entered what later became known as the lost decades. For nearly 30 years, Japan experienced weak economic growth, stagnant wages, and deflation. Prices did not rise. In fact, many things slowly became cheaper. Because of this environment, Japanese households became extremely cautious about buying property. Why take on a 35-year mortgage if housing prices might fall? For a long time, Tokyo real estate remained relatively stable. But in recent years, that stability has disappeared. Japan is finally seeing inflation again, construction costs are rising, interest rates are shifting, and foreign investment is flowing into the country. Tokyo real estate has responded, but critical part is that salary increase never responded. By 2024, the average price of a new condominium in Tokyo's 23 wards exceeded 110 million yen. Back in 2015, the average price was around 67 million yen. In less than a decade, prices rose by more than 60%. In some areas, the increases have been even sharper. Used condominiums in the 23 wards have also surged. In many neighborhoods, prices have doubled compared with levels seen just a decade ago. Buying a home in central Tokyo has suddenly become far more difficult, and buying is not the only challenge. Rent is rising as well. Rental prices across the 23 wards have been climbing steadily. Demand for apartments is extremely strong. Occupancy rates for rental housing in central Tokyo are close to 97%. In practical terms, that means almost every available apartment is being filled. Typical rents in central wards now look very different from the past. In Minato ward, a one-bedroom apartment can cost around 260,000 yen per month. In Chiyoda, rents can exceed 220,000 yen. Even small studio apartments often start around 100,000 yen a month. For many residents, the numbers no longer make sense because salaries in Japan have barely changed. The average annual salary in Japan remains around 4.6 million yen. In Tokyo, incomes are somewhat higher, but even in the capital, many households earn between 5 and 6 million yen a year. When rent alone can consume 150,000 to 250,000 yen per month, the math becomes difficult. That is why more people are making a different choice. They are leaving the city center. As housing costs rise, residents are increasingly moving to the outer metropolitan areas, places like Saitama, Chiba, and Kanagawa. These regions still offer lower housing costs while remaining within commuting distance of Tokyo. Kanagawa, especially cities like Yokohama, is often seen as the luxury suburban option. But even there, prices have risen quickly. For many workers, the more affordable options are now in Saitama or Chiba. That often means longer commutes and a different lifestyle, but it reflects a broader shift inside Tokyo itself. The city center is becoming more expensive and more investment-driven. Several forces are pushing prices upward at the same time. Foreign investment in Japanese real estate has increased significantly. Global funds are pouring money into the market as Japan finally exits decades of deflation. The weak yen has also made Japanese property relatively cheap for international buyers. At the same time, new housing supply in central Tokyo remains limited, and despite Japan's shrinking population, Tokyo itself continues to attract people from across the country. The result is a powerful concentration of demand. and that demand is reshaping the city. This new housing cycle is creating two very different groups. For homeowners in central Tokyo, rising property values have created enormous gains. Apartments purchased years ago have doubled or even tripled in value. But for renters and first-time buyers, the situation looks very different. Housing now consumes a much larger share of income, and many residents are finding themselves priced out of the neighborhoods where they once lived. For nearly 30 years, Tokyo existed in a unique economic environment. Prices were stable, housing was relatively affordable, and the memory of the bubble crash kept speculation under control, but that era may be ending. Now Tokyo is entering a pattern that looks much closer to other global cities: higher property values, rising rents, and a widening divide between those who own property and those who do not. Tokyo may still be one of the most efficient and livable cities in the world, but increasingly it is also becoming a much more expensive place to live. And for many residents, the only question left is how far from the city centre they will have to move